because every kid's dream was to get to Butler Fieldhouse for Final Four, and the backyards, the alleys, everything had the basketball goals up.
A place.
And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I mean, you know, it's like it was like heaven to me, you know, to be able to go and play in Butler Fieldhouse at that particular time, and it seemed so big and massive.
One shot.
I finally shot that shot 1,000 times, maybe more than that, and I stopped and shot a jump shot, and when it left my hands, I knew it was going in.
The unforgettable experience. Hoosier Hoops, the golden era. In the 1950s, it seems that from the moment a boy was born in Indiana, a basketball would be by his side. The thump, thump, thump of the dribble in the barn lot or in a driveway on a moonlit fall night, beating out a rhythm that could be heard from Muncie to Milan, Newcastle to Terre Haute, Evansville to South Bend, and all the towns in between. The high school basketball games were the place where all Hoosiers were bound together in a rabid support for their boys and their team. Feelings so intense, they have a name all their own, Hoosier hysteria. Hello, I'm Mike Ahern. It's no secret that Indiana truly has an unmatched basketball heritage, a love of this game that extends far beyond the court to pull entire communities together even today. But of all the tremendous periods in the history of Indiana high school basketball, the decade of the 1950s brings together the heart of Hoosier hysteria more than any other. The 1950s truly were the decade of Hoosier hoops, the golden era.
It was a golden age, and I think that probably basketball hit its peak right then. The interest was there from the fans. The athletes were dedicated to being the best they could be, and there was great harmony.
I think the city of Indianapolis, Indiana had the greatest high school basketball in the country. And I think it was the most difficult, best competition. And the fans, it generated so much emotion and excitement among the fans. It was just, I thought when then and I think now, I think more about it now because I've grown up and got to look back on it. I thought it was tremendous.
Basketball, you just grow up knowing that you're going to play basketball, you know. I lived on a farm when I was a kid. I had an outdoor court. We just shoot baskets. That's all there was to do. You know, that's what makes Indiana the hotbed of basketball, I suppose.
When I was a kid growing up, that's all we did was play basketball. We didn't do much else. Everybody met at a court somewhere, at a school outdoors, and you picked a team, you played, and you just did it by the hour.
I think it was just a thing that was born. I don't know, you maybe inherited it, I don't know. But I think the state of Indiana was just known and just participated in basketball. You got little kids this tall right now. They got a basketball in their hand.
People were feeling good. They were glad they were alive. Economic times were good. There wasn't competition of television. It had always been big here, but I think there was a great feeling at that time, and there was no competition.
At that time, basketball was just so much more important to everybody than any of the other sports.
Today, on a Friday night, you can watch 2 or 3 pro games, a couple of college games, even a high school game in many cases. So there just wasn't the competition back then. That was the thing to do on Friday nights. That was the place to see and be seen. That was the place to meet your friends.
Decisions were made. The community lived around the basketball program. Everybody went to the basketball games on Friday and Saturday nights. And decisions were made there. It didn't make any difference if you had a great team, a mediocre team, or a bad team. Your community followed you.
The basketball team was the heart and soul of the community.
Friday night was the night that the whole community lived for. I mean, that's when the boys played basketball. In that time frame, everybody was behind the 5 kids who were on that floor, and I don't I mean, it was that town's identification, and boy, they wanted to win basketball. That was it's a badge of identification, and when they had winning teams, it was a major item of pride.
The team was the focus of the community. You know, I think we've all seen those signs, especially if they got out of the sectional and they went to the regional, and they closed up. Of course, there wasn't a whole lot to close up, but they closed up everything and everybody went to the tournament. Now, high school basketball, maybe it was because we were at that age and we weren't into the college game or the pro game or that, but college or high school basketball was everything. That was everything.
Hot pants! Hey, hot pants!
Well, being a cheerleader at Milan, it was, you know, you were one of the greatest if you got to be cheerleader at Milan.
I think it still is a Milan miracle. There's a lot made out of the fact that we had played with each other all through our grade school and high school. But that's not unusual. So did every other team in Ripley County. It isn't something that was so unusual. Every community, everybody grew up together.
Growing up together and winning a state championship, truly the stuff that dreams are made of. The difference is, this dream came true. And if any one achievement made the 1950s the golden era of Hoosier hoops, it was the incredible David versus Goliath victory of tiny Milan High School over powerhouse Muncie Central in the 1954 Indiana State Tourney. The mighty Milan Indians are revered and remembered by more people than perhaps any team in all of Indiana basketball history. And with the success of the movie Hoosiers, the Milan Miracle has become a part of American folklore. Tucked away in southeastern Indiana's Ripley County, Milan is a town of only about 1,200 people. And in 1954, the Milan High School was one of the state's smallest. Total enrollment was just 162. Only 73 were boys. Marvin Wood was starting just his third year of coaching when he took the reins of the Milan team in the fall of 1952.
They had a student strike there in support of the old coach. And that put pressure on me right there, because if I'd known that, I'm not certain I would have made that move. But we were starting practice the first year I was down there, and there was a gentleman by the name of Coon Frokes. He was president of the school board. He came in to practice, and he made this statement. Well, the old coach said these guys were good enough to make it to the field house. And that was pressure right there.
As 1952 turned to 53, Woods silenced the skeptics. Coach Wood's new, more disciplined offense paid off as the Indians made a run all the way to the state Final Four. Matched against South Bend Central, Milan struggled. Guard Bobby Plump went to the hoop for 19 points, but the final score rang up 56-37 in favor of South Bend Central, the eventual state champion for 1953. Milan finished the 1953 season with 24 wins and 5 losses, and with a group of talented players hungry for greater success.
They wanted to be good. They were willing to pay the price to be good. I think they felt they were exceptionally talented, and they wanted to get the most out of the skills and the talents that they had.
And then the year 1954 came, and they began to play their games, and they did so well. They did very well. And then when the tournament time came, it was win a game. Are they going to win again? Win a game? And it began to build up so that you were just very, very excited. Every week you got very excited thinking, you know, can they do this again? Will they do this again?
After posting an 18-2 record, the march was on to the championship that would never be forgotten. And when the Milan Indians went to their championship games, they rode in style.
We didn't come to the state tournament in the old bus like they had in the movie Hoosiers. You know, Chris Volz had a dealership in Milan from 1927 on, and he had every GM product, and you weren't supposed to do that back then, but he had every GM product plus trucks. So he gave us Chevrolets for the sectional, and he gave us Oldsmobiles for the regionals, Buicks for the semifinals, and Cadillacs for the state tournament.
With semifinal wins over Montezuma and Crispus Attucks, Milan was on their way to the state Final Four. And as they returned to Butler Fieldhouse, they rejoined an old friend from the previous year. Indianapolis police officer Pat Stark, assigned to escort the team in 1953, had become a part of the Milan miracle.
Yeah, I kind of adopted them and they kind of adopted me, and it was a pretty close relationship.
Pat is a member of our team. He was there for us in '53. He was our escort, and he was in the dressing room when we had our briefing sessions and our halftime. He was there all the time. He was a part of us. So when we came back the next year, we asked for him and didn't know for sure whether it would happen or not, and we got him.
Stark was back, and Milan made their way to the finals to face the most intimidating team of the era, a team everyone loved to hate, Muncie Central.
I can remember just being so excited that I couldn't even rest, you know, because it was going to be a big game. And as we got there, of course, almost everybody in the field house was going to be for Milan because of the small town against the big guy.
The Muncie Central Bearcats came into the final game with 28 sectional titles, 16 regional titles, 10 semi-state titles, and 4 previous state championships under their belt.
We were really hurting. Probably not too many people realized this. Bob Ingold was one of our better players. His back was really bothering him. He was a strong rebounder and a good perimeter shooter, and so we had to go. He just played enough to say he was in the game. And then Muncie ran over Plump early in the game. And the coach, I understand, had instructed them, hey, if he's in the way, don't worry about making the basket, just run over him. And they did. And he was hurting the rest of the game. So we were struggling just to find a way to stay competitive. In fact, that's the reason we did some of the things we did, like holding the ball for 4 minutes. We felt maybe if we can stay close enough in the last 3 minutes, we'll have a shot.
We found ourselves down 28-26 in the fourth quarter. I come across the 10-second line, and I look over to the sideline, and we'd passed the ball around, and I got the ball back, and I looked over, and Marvin Wood's sitting just like I am. He's got his legs crossed, and he's got his foot king. He's going, I figure, I guess he wants me to stand here. Well, I stood there for a little while, and I looked over after a minute, and he's going, well, I guess he wants to stand here some more. So I stood there for 4 minutes and 13 seconds, and people asked him after it was over, he said, what in the world was in your mind, Coach? He said, you got Plump standing out there, you're behind 28-26, 15,000 fans are screaming in the finals of the state tournament. And I facetiously say, Woody, he said, well, I was just trying to think of something to do. What he really was trying to do was keep us in the game, keep us within a distance of a bucket of being able to tie it up. They obviously, if we had them down 22-15, they outscored us 13-4. We weren't doing very well.
We're down to 3 minutes and 40 seconds. 3 minutes and 39 seconds. We're getting another boy ready to come into the ball game. And we'll see who it's going to be. Wendelman's coming in a moment.
Just on pins and needles all the time. Just tension. You cannot believe the tension that just the whole seating section was just, especially when Plump was holding the ball. You know, 4 minutes and 15 seconds, he's standing out there holding the ball, and we're 2 points behind. Everybody's panicking, you know, what are we doing? I thought, I don't know what he's doing.
Still tied, 30-30, 25 seconds. Plump is dribbling out of the middle. And a timeout for Milan with 18 seconds to go, and the score tied 30-30.
We called timeout with 18 seconds to go, and the score was tied 30-30, so we get in the huddle, and Woody, he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. He says, Kraft, you take the ball out, you throw it to Bob, and Bob, you just dribble around until there are 6, 7, 8 seconds to go, and then you can make your move. Just make sure they don't get a shot after you shoot. I said, let's go over that again. He said,
well, I told him this game's we're either going to win it or it's going into overtime. We're not going to shoot too early, because if we do, they have a chance to get back at us. And that's why we put a little structure on how to use the time. And Muncie didn't want to foul. We knew they didn't want to foul, so they were going to be very careful. And I remember Gene White stated, why don't we get all the rest of the guys out of the way? And I said, great idea. That way they couldn't double up on him. It's just going to be one-on-one. And that's the way it turned out.
There was nobody that could guard Bob one-on-one, not let him drive or get his jump shot off, especially if he was his size or slightly taller. And Bob wasn't having a particularly great game that night, but so maybe he was due. But anyway, we felt that we had a great shot at winning it because we were going to get the last shot. If it went in, we were going to win the ball game. And I guess we still felt that we were in good condition as they were, and if it had to go into overtime, we would prevail. I got across 10-second line, Ray threw the ball back to me, and so help me, those four guys started going to the left side, and I looked, and here goes the four defensive guys, and I'm thinking, wow, you know. So I'm standing there with the ball, and I kept looking at the clock, and I think I started my move with about 6 seconds to go, and I faked left, and Jimmy Barnes just moved a little bit to his left and allowed me to go to the right, and he didn't want me to drive all the way, so he laid way back, and I got to the free throw line, which was the fifth way in our offense. I probably shot that shot 1,000 times, maybe more than that, and I stopped and shot a jump shot, and when it left my hands, I knew it was going in.
Milan with 18 seconds to go, and the scorecards turn to 30. Seconds. Pop holds it. He's dribbling around. 10 seconds. 9 seconds. Bobby Plum dribbling. 6 seconds. Plum going down. Jump. Shoots from the circle. Scores! Now 1 second. The game's over. Milan wins. Milan wins 32 to 30.
It was a great feeling. It was probably the greatest instantaneous thrill a kid could ever have in his life.
I thought, oh, God. Everybody just automatic, everybody rushed down the floor, you know, and it just engulfed the whole floor. It's just unreal, you know.
Just I was excited as they were, you know, jumping up and rooting, going out holding the ladder while they cut the net down and all that. I more or less forgot it was a police team. Just became part of it, caught up in it.
It's very hard to express. You know, the sound in that field house was deafening. And our players were so excited, our crowd. No, it was just our players. It was the crowd, the whole state of Indiana, except for one little pocket, Muncie, Indiana. Won the state that night. It's a dream, and it's a dream come true. I never realized then that this dream would last as long as it has.
Though Milan had their golden moment in 1954, the Goliath of that game, the Muncie Central Bearcats, had no shortage of glory in the golden era of Hoosier hoops. With sectional and regional victories in abundance and state titles in 1951 and 52, for a time, the Bearcats seemed nearly unbeatable, and they knew it.
We got a lot of bad raps when we were in school because of maybe we were cocky, but when you're a winner, people are against you. Like I mentioned earlier, the New York Yankees, Notre Dame, and the Bearcats were all put in the same breath. That's who we wanted to beat. We beat them, we beat somebody. And I think that was just part of the atmosphere that was generated by Muncie Central and the Bearcats.
Danny Thornburg, Charlie Hodson, and Tom Razor played together on 2 Muncie Central State Championship teams, winning it all in 1951 and 52. And while they were there and winning so much, the Bearcats were the team everybody loved to hate. But it didn't bother them.
We loved going to Anderson, right? Kokomo, Richmond.
Tough getting back on the bus sometime.
No, The crowds were hostile. We couldn't wait to get there. We expected to win. And sometimes I think we expected to win on the road more than we did at home. We had those ghosts in the field house that we just...
Well, you were expected to win at home.
Right,
Yeah,
now,
you're,
but
you're not expected to lose at home.
we expected to win every game, and I just think we intended to do it. We were going to find a way to do it, and I don't think that was pressure.
No, we
I
loved
don't
it,
think
see.
we felt pressure.
No.
We loved it.
We go on the road, every place we go, we're booed. You know, I mean, we won the state, and so here they come, and so you're going to be booed. Everyone's from that. We loved it. We just grin, you know, we go out there, and we loved it, you know.
I think that's the way people felt. They really despised or hated the Bearcats, and I think that all boils down to the fact that when you're successful and good on top of it, people just don't like that kind of stuff, and they want their team to win, which is natural.
Even with their school's winning tradition, the pressure they felt as players wasn't to win. It was just making the team.
That's when I was scared. I wanted to be a Bearcat so bad I could taste it. You wanted to wear that purple and white.
Only 12 of us out of 900 were
And the competition was fierce. I mean, we played against each other growing up. Charlie was at Wilson, and I was at McKinley, so we knew what the talent was at the 3 junior high schools. And we all knew we wanted to be Bearcats. And I think that was...
That was pressure, right?
We loved
You had to
it.
make
We
it.
loved it, and we wanted to make it. And the greatest feeling in the world when you knew that you made the final cut.
Yeah, remember when
oh boy,
they would post it. They're in the high school, down to one end of the, I can't remember which hall. The coach would tell you they're on the final list. The guys on the team be
right
posted.
outside my office.
Yeah, longest walk in the world was that morning as you walk down that hallway. My God, let my name, please let my name be on there. That was pressure. Yeah, that part was pressure. Boy, it was a long walk. Remember the long walk down that hallway?
And nobody had any clue
No,
that
nobody
they
had
had
any-
it made.
Yeah.
Once they had it made, a game on the Bearcats' home floor became an intensive experience that remains vivid even today.
It was electric every night. Back then, what was the capacity?
7,500 that time.
And I
Packed
remember
about
talking a few
10,000
days
in
ago.
there.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. We were talking about how you'd have 8 or 9 or maybe even 10,000 people clear up in the corner. You could smoke. So here would come the smoke level as the evening wore on. It'd work down, it'd get closer and closer to the floor, get hotter and hotter and hotter. And boy, I'll tell you, by the time we came out for the warm-up, that place was jumping. And we loved it.
It didn't surprise us that we won. Supreme self-confidence, perhaps, but I think that makes a winning team too. That makes a winning team.
The next on ESPN Classic.
It'll be a classic Saturday night at 6. Big Ticket presents the high school game that inspired the movie Hoosiers in the Milan Miracle.
While the Bearcats were winning games and making enemies, another kind of cat was on the prowl on the western edge of the state. The Black Cats of Terre Haute-Gersmeyer were coached by legendary Howard Sharp, who developed his own winning tradition with a stable of hoop stars.
Those were great years in Terre Haute. And the thing back then, too, we also had the Wabash Valley Tourney, which was the largest non-state tournament in the United States. We had 116 teams in that Wabash Valley tournament, and that was big to try to win that thing. So there were a lot of goals, but the ultimate was Butler Fieldhouse.
I had Bobby Leonard and Arlie, Uncle Harold. I had a lot of great players. In other words, I developed a lot of it, but I could only develop what God gave me.
Leonard left the Black Cats behind after graduating in 1950. Then came the most famous trio to play in that era: Harley, Arlie, and Uncle Harold. Harley and Arlie Andrews were twin brothers, and they played together on the Gersmeyer teams with their Uncle Harold.
Well, Uncle Harold, as he's well known, is truly an uncle. Is my dad's youngest brother of 7 children. And he's 9 months younger than Arlie and I. And so we brought him up, taught him a little bit about basketball, and in his own right became a very good ball player.
Arlie Andrews was the big scorer for the Black Cats, and together Harley, Arlie, and Uncle Harold led the team to 31 victories in 1953, all the way to the state finals championship game against South Bend Central. It was a game the Black Cats could have won if not for a mix-up on foul calls. Arlie, number 34, was charged with a foul his identical twin, Harley, number 43, actually committed.
And it was true, there was an error made, there was no question about it. And we had many of the sports writers, the broadcasters, and everybody had it right with the exception of the official scorekeeper, which was the most important. There was probably a 10-minute timeout discussion on that. I made the foul, and it was given to Arlie.
Over to Smith, drives around and gives it now to Harley. There's a shot, and it's no good, a long rebound, and a foul is called on Arlie Andrews, number 34.
And in those days, a lot of times the official would come over and lift your arm if you made the foul to make sure that was recorded properly. The mistake, I think, was made and when the official gave the report by hand signals to the official scorer. The 34 was read in reverse. And so that's what happened. And I think it was an honest mistake, and it can happen in sports, and that's the way they accept it.
In foul trouble, Arlie sat out much of the game, and early in the fourth quarter fouled out for good. Still, Harley stepped up with 20 points, and with the Black Cats down 1 with 3 seconds left, Harley launched a shot from the top of the key. It bounced out, and South Bend took home the 1953 state crown.
I really think that if Artie could have played more in that ballgame, would easily win, because he was the leading scorer, leading rebounder, and was the key. And he didn't play much and didn't score much that final game.
I was at that Final Four, and it's one of those games. I mean, Howard, his dream, his lifetime dream, you have to understand, was to win the state championship. And he got to the Final Four several times, but he could never win it. But what a wonderful career that he had, and the things that he did for all those kids through all those years that came up through Gershmeyer.
That was his goal, to win the state championship. And I think it probably hurt him more than anybody. And if we should have won that, that would have been the greatest thing that we could ever have done for him. And I'm sure the other teams that went to the Final Four felt the same way.
In the 50s, Sharp took his Black Cats on 4 trips to the state tourney Final Four. And his teams won 3 straight Wabash Valley tournaments, competing against more than 100 teams from Indiana and Illinois in the grueling midseason shootout.
I learned so much. I don't think I ever learned as much from a coach after as I did from Howard Sharp in high school.
Though Sharp's teams never made it all the way to the state championship, he is today the winningest high school basketball coach in Indiana history. Howard Sharp notched 755 wins in his 45 seasons of coaching. A big share of those came with his beloved Terre Haute Gerstmeyer Black Cats in the golden era of Hoosier hoops.
Can you imagine the fans and the excitement and the emotional highs? I mean, it was just wonderful, really. It was as I said before, it was just the greatest times that I think anyone could have experienced going through high school.
And I think that the whole city was proud, black and white, of Crispus Attucks. That's what I felt. Mm-hmm. Pressure makes the diamond. Mm-hmm.
If pressure makes the diamond, maybe that's why the Crispus Attucks Tigers shone as brightly as any star in that golden era of Hoosier hoops. The Tiger teams of the 50s faced as much or more pressure than any other, both on and off the court. Created as an all-black high school in the 1920s, Indianapolis Crispus Attucks was still segregated in the 1950s. State titles in 1955, 56, and 59 put the now closed high school into the record book. But the enduring legacy of Crispus Attucks High School and its outstanding basketball tradition is found in the changed lives and changed attitudes of those who were touched by the Tigers.
Even after leaving Attucks, we felt that we were still representing Attucks. We were not only representing Attucks, we were representing the black community. And there was no way we were going to do anything that was going to be embarrassing, you know, to us or to that tradition.
You go to school the next day after you won a basketball game, and then around the community, people who really had no hope of ever getting anything out of life, at least they could feel good about something these young black, little skinny-legged kids accomplished.
For Indianapolis Crispus Attucks, every step forward came with a struggle. With no gym of their own, the Tigers played every one of their games on the road. Later, as their success and popularity grew, the Tigers began playing many of their games in the Butler Fieldhouse, drawing crowds of over 14,000.
There were many, many basketball fans in Indianapolis from other schools or without any allegiance to any school, who really would come to see Attucks play at Hinkle Fieldhouse, you know, almost every game, because, you know, it was really a good thing for the city to have a team like that they could accept, you know, and be proud of and respect.
Winning the greatest respect was a Crispus Attucks Tiger whose name surfaces again and again as the best of the best in that golden era.
Oscar was like a rubber band. He could stretch and reach farther than anybody I've ever seen in my life, and he got nothing but better after that. To me, he is the best that I have seen in Indiana high school basketball.
Oscar Robertson would be a coach's dream, any coach's dream. I mean, with his ability, basketball ability, and as a person, great individual. You know, easy to coach, had leadership ability that made him make everybody else on the team better.
For Oscar Robertson and many of the Crispus Attucks basketball players, their success was built through intense competition in a place called the Dust Bowl. Located on Indianapolis's near west side in the black neighborhood called Lockfield Gardens, Attucks players sharpened their skills in the Dust Bowl with long, hot summers spent shooting hoops.
This is where you really hone your skills to playing against different competition, to be able to do the things without thinking. Instinctively, you do things that you don't think about doing them.
The rise of Crispus Attucks to basketball power began in 1951 when Ray Crow became the Tigers' coach. From the first, Crow was intent on making his players learn more than basketball.
As you can see, he believed in winning, but you know, along with that, he also believed in building character. He was teaching more than just basketball, more than just winning on the court. He taught how to get along with people, all kinds of people. He taught fairness. He was a firm, fair, flexible person himself.
In Crow's first year, Oscar Robertson's older brother, Bailey, and shooting star Hallie Bryant helped put Crispus Attucks on the map. A one-point last-second win over Anderson in the regionals was the stepping stone that took the 1951 Attucks Tigers all the way to the state Final Four before losing to Evansville Rights 66-59. Reaching the Final Four in 1951 gave Crow and the Attucks Tigers a picture of what they could achieve. Until 1955, no Indianapolis school had ever won a state championship, and no all-black school had ever won before. But that all changed as the Crispus Attucks Tigers won 31 games in 1955 and went all the way to the finals to face Gary Roosevelt, another all-black school.
We kind of felt, isolated. That most of Indianapolis really didn't appreciate it. Matter of fact, we sort of suspected when we played Gary Roosevelt, and that would never happen again, two black teams playing for the state. We sort of felt that the majority of the people in the stands wanted them to win rather than us, so we wouldn't be the first team to win the state championship for Indianapolis.
Only 8 seconds to go. The guy's going to get there. 6 seconds. There's Ford firing. And it's all over. Indianapolis wins their first state basketball championship.
No matter the adversity, junior Oscar Robertson scored 30 points, and Attucks took apart Gary Roosevelt, defeating them 97-74. The Tigers' 97 points is a final game scoring record that still stands.
You're happy, of course. You're happy with the guys. You know, it's an emotional thing. It's a high emotional times, I should say. We knew we accomplished something that you know, a lot of teams, we knew we were number one in the state. We knew all these teams that played, and came down to those two teams, which happens every year, and we were the best.
Though victory was sweet, the celebration of Attucks' first state title is a memory tainted by the attitudes of the time.
Really, when we had the bonfire, we were a little disappointed at the celebration afterwards because we all of a sudden realized that we didn't have the full support of Indianapolis. We were taken around the circle a couple of times and then back into the black community, and that was sort of a downer. It really kind of destroyed the celebration.
In 1956, the Tigers went all the way again, winning all 31 of their games and becoming Indiana's first ever undefeated state champs. In the final game, Attucks matched up against Lafayette Jeff, easily outdistancing their opponent 79-57. Robertson poured in 39 points and led all scorers in the state tournament, making the all-state team for the second year in a row.
Well, I think Christmas Attucks basketball probably changed the city some in helping to break down some of the racial barriers that existed at that time. I don't think any one year did it all, but I just think our basketball team helped to do away with some of the segregation and all that has taken place before and during that time.
Those teams did everything to forward integration, forward race relations, because you couldn't help but love those Attucks teams with Oscar. I mean, he was such a great player. In my mind, no one has ever come close to being that good, and that was right at the time of the Topeka suit for integration, and it fit right into Indiana because it allowed basketball to do in Indiana what Jackie Robinson and baseball had done for the rest of the country not quite 10 years earlier. I mean, this is a pivotal period of history, and basketball fit into it.
In 1959, Attucks was back on top again, picking up their third state title of the decade as the Tigers defeated Jimmy Rail and the Kokomo Cats to add another year of glory to the Crispus Attucks legacy. While racial prejudices did not change overnight, the Attucks Tigers showed that achievement was a door that could be opened to anyone, regardless of color.
We are lost.
In the 50s, perhaps no place in Indiana meant more to a community than the local high school gym. The gym was the scene of school dances, pep rallies, graduation ceremonies that will live on in a lifetime of memories. But first and foremost, the high school gym in Indiana was built for hoops. The Friday night games made the gym the place to be. In November of 1951, the Huntingburg Happy Hunters christened their new high school gym, built to hold 6,214 people, over 1,000 more than the town's population. And they weren't alone. Many schools adopted this strategy to ensure home court advantage during tournament times. Of the 20 largest high school gyms in America, 18 are right here in Indiana. And the Hoosier State has more than 30 high school gyms with a basketball seating capacity of over 5,000. The biggest? Of course, it's the legendary Newcastle Fieldhouse.
The people of Newcastle were very tired of losing every regional at Muncie. And so they decided that they were going to build a gym even bigger than the Muncie Fieldhouse in order to convince the IHSAA that the regional should be moved to Newcastle. And they did that. They built a gym of over 9,000. It's still the biggest gym in the United States, the biggest high school gymnasium in the United States.
With a capacity of 9,325, the Newcastle Fieldhouse was built as perhaps the capstone on the golden age of Indiana high school basketball, dedicated on November 21st, 1959. The huge Newcastle Fieldhouse actually got its start in a rather unusual way 3 years earlier.
In the mid-1950s, the people of Newcastle decided that they needed to build a new high school. And the high school was built on the south side of town, but they didn't have the funds at the time to build a new gymnasium.
When the local school board put thumbs down on including a new gym in their plans for a new high school, basketball fans took matters into their own hands.
They formed a not-for-profit corporation called Gym Now, and first of all, they had a fundraising campaign. They raised about $200,000 just through, they let students out of the high school during the day to do odd jobs for people. They had public car washes. They had parades and fundraising events.
I would guess that there was more money raised by nickels and dimes than there was by any kind of big givings. Clubs in school would raise $10. People in the community would do this, that, and the other thing and contribute.
Then they sold about $800,000 in bonds, in 20-year bonds, to members of the community. And that was the way they raised the over $1 million they needed to build the gym without using tax money. And in 20 years, they paid the gym off and handed it over to the high school, debt-free.
In 1956, a torchlight parade kicked off the Gym Now campaign. Construction on this monument to Hoosier hysteria began in the winter of 1958.
My parents, I remember I was 4 years old, my parents brought me over here to the high school where the gym was being built. And we came up beside this huge hole in the ground. I found out later, it was over 300 feet by 200 feet and 50 feet deep. And I remember my dad saying, "That's where we're going to play basketball in about another year." And I thought, how are we going to play basketball down in this hole? I had no idea how it was going to be done. And I remember coming into the field house for the first time and as a 5-year-old and just being overwhelmed.
By the fall of 1959, Newcastle Roundball fans had their incredible facility. Through their Gym Now campaign, the people of Newcastle had built not just the biggest high school basketball gymnasium in Indiana or the Midwest, but the biggest in America. Call it the game of the century or the 100-point wonder. Next to the Milan Miracle in 1954, this one is perhaps the most famed game in Indiana high school basketball history. And it took place near the end of the 1950s, the perfect exclamation point on this golden era of Hoosier hoops. On February 20th, 1959, Newcastle squared off at home against Kokomo. It was a game that would close the doors on Newcastle's old gymnasium before the move the next fall to the huge new field house. And the nearly 2,000 fans packed elbow to elbow in the tiny Church Street gym witnessed an incredible shootout that became one for the record books. One of Indiana's greatest pure shooters ever, the Kokomo Cats' Jimmy Rail, known as the Splendid Splinter, and the Newcastle Trojans' own shooting star, Ray Pavey, filled it up for a record 100 points combined.
I knew we were both having good nights, but I didn't realize it was going to end up quite like that. I thought maybe we might get 40 apiece, something like that. It was just a bit more than what I had thought it was turning out to be.
I would say it's probably the second greatest game in the state of Indiana. Probably because of the uniqueness of it, and we're not in a three-point shot. The 51-49 were all earned.
Ray Pavey ripped the nets with 23 buckets and 38 shots from the field and dropped in 5 of 8 free throw attempts.
I missed 7 layups in the first quarter. Can you imagine how many points we could have gotten if I really played well? You know, I played. You know, my game was terrible in the first quarter, and I was just I was untouchable in the second quarter. You know, I got 21 points in the second quarter. That's a lot of buckets.
Jimmy Rail, a long-range bomber, arced 18 of his 33 shots into the hoop and was a deadly 13 of 15 from the foul line.
Joe, my coach, I mean, you couldn't shoot enough to suit him. I mean, obviously you had to make some once in a while to make him happy, but he didn't hold you back. I mean, and not only did I shoot, my teammates would. I mean, I shot a lot, but my teammates got a lot of shots too.
The gym had such great range. I don't know of anybody ever that has had the kind of range of shooting Jim had. You know, I mean, literally, one step across the 10-second line was a good shot, and if you let him alone, he'd shoot it, and probably it'd go in.
Everybody has their right to their opinion, but if I had an open shot and I didn't take it, I'd feel like an idiot. You know, I'll take the first good shot because you know, if you can't take that, you can't make that, you might as well not be out there.
The final box score read 51 points for Ray Pavey, 49 points for Jimmy Rail. In the end, Pavey and the Newcastle Trojans outgunned Rail and the Kokomo Cats to win 92-81. Yet Kokomo would ride the wave and Jimmy Rail's splendid shooting all the way to the 1959 Indiana State Finals, falling to the Crispus Attucks Tigers in the championship game. Still, that one night in late February of 1959, when Ray Pavey and Jimmy Rail combined for 100 points, their century game, is another golden memory in the history of Hoosier hoops. Hoosiers have spent their lives holding a basketball, and yet, as we look back on the 1950s, it really seems that basketball has had a hold on Hoosiers all these years. The lights streaming down onto the court, the squeak of 10 pairs of shoes up and down the old wooden floor, the roar of the crowd, the shrill whistle of the referee, and then those last moments of time, slowly, endlessly ticking off the clock and sending the game, the crowd, and the players into the hazy golden light of yesterday, where each game lives on.
The world for years. But Bobby Plump's moment wasn't transformed by memory into myth. It was myth when it happened. He played the leading role in the real-life Hoosiers story. A dream, first formed on the once bustling streets of Milan, Indiana, and realized in a flick of his wrist.
I didn't really know whether we could get there or not. But it was a chance that we had to take, and we went out and we got him.
So David prevailed over Goliath with a sling and a stone. He struck the Philistine and killed him. A Bible story, retold in the heartland, and the hope that a miracle might happen unified Indiana every winter for 86 years.
There was pride in your area just to win a sectional, and if you won a regional, man, you were way up there. And then the unusual thing of winning a state tournament, I mean, that was just, we never dreamed we were going to win a state tournament.
Never heard of it.
If we knew we were supposed to, we probably wouldn't have.
The Indiana State High School basketball tournament. Every school, no matter how large or small, competing for one trophy.
Basketball is very important in Indiana. It becomes the connection, the sinews of a town, the bonding of a town. It's really about defining community in a state which is very poor, very rural, and where there isn't a lot of other stimuli.
It gave small communities an identity. They had something that they could be known for.
The Milan of the 40s and 50s was a railroad town where most made a living farming or working in a furniture factory.
It's just like guys used to ask me all the time. They'd say, you know, living down there, he said, well, God, you must have had everything. I said, no, didn't have nothing. Had a lot of love from everybody in the town. I said, but didn't have anything. I said, you know, you got a new pair of shoes and a shirt or something for Christmas. That was big.
I think maybe I was in the 8th grade before I ever saw a varsity high school basketball game. And I thought, gosh, if I could just sit on the bench and put on one of those varsity basketball uniforms, I'd be a hero.
The team was the town when competing against nearby schools, and the accounts of every game were entered by word of mouth into the community's homespun historical record.
Arkenberg's was the gathering place after the ball games. You'd go in there and get your hamburger and your milkshake, and you'd listen to everybody talk about it.
They were so crowded. To get a hamburger from the counter, you had to pass it over top of people because you couldn't walk through the crowds.
I don't think you want to be too nostalgic about the America that used to be, which was a poorer country, there was less opportunity, there was more prejudice, and yet there were aspects of that time, a certain modesty, a connection, a sense of loyalty to each other that we would do well to pay some attention to.
There wasn't very much money. People had to work awfully, awfully hard at some jobs that were not very good. But we were basically happy. I guess it was, if you don't know what it is that you don't have, it doesn't mean very much.
Milan, a school of 161 students, hired a new basketball coach in 1952, 24-year-old Marvin Wood. He got the job after his predecessor was fired for spending too much money on new uniforms.
He wasn't very much older than we were. If he wanted to show us how to play, he'd get out there and play with us, and you knew that he was better than most guys out there.
He came home one evening and he said, President of the school board, Mr. Frooks, was down and watched practice this afternoon. And I said, oh, really? And I said, I didn't think you let anyone in. And he said, well, he came and I thought it was early. We'd just let him stay. And he said, Mr. Frooks said to me, you know, the old coach said these boys ought to go to the field house this year. He said, we'll probably get it run out of here on a rail if they don't win the sectional.
People across the state took notice of Milan as the team worked its way through the '53 tournament. When the Indians arrived at Butler Fieldhouse to play in the States, one of them was heard to say, boy, you sure could fit a lot of hay in here. The Indians lost in the semifinal, but with only one starter set to graduate, their slingshot was fully loaded.
This is the sound. These are the results. Can you feel it? Can you hear it? This is the sound of the PowerFlex by Gold's Gym, the authority since 1965. Gold's Gym gives you one powerful machine with 65 club-quality exercises and up to 410 pounds of resistance to build muscle, define muscle, lose fat, all in just 6 weeks or less to get you the body you've always wanted, guaranteed. The secret to the PowerFlex begins with the swivel flex pulleys that provide you with free range of motion so you can move from one exercise to the next safely. Next, Power Stroke Resistance simulates the natural movement of your muscles and allows you to move from 10 to 410 pounds of resistance with one simple stroke. It's this awesome combination that gives you those ripped abs and more chiseled arms, legs, chest, and back. If you want to look like this, then you need this. PowerFlex, the Gold's Gym technology breakthrough. Call now for free information about how you can get the Gold's Gym PowerFlex in your home for as little as $49 a month. With the Gold's Gym PowerFlex, you get the lat tower, the multi-position bench, hip strap, rowing seat, ankle strap, handles, and space saver design.
Be one of the first callers, and you'll get the Gold's Gym PowerFlex Leg Developer for stronger legs and shapelier hips and thighs. A $200 value, absolutely free. You'll also get a workout poster showing you all 65 club-quality exercises. Our gift to you. Don't pay $2,000 for a home gym that won't get you authentic Gold's Gym results. This is the machine. These are the results. Can you feel it?
Call 1-800-690-9863 to get the Gold's Gym in your home for as little as $49 a month. That's 1-800-690-9863. 1-800-690-9863. Call now.
They'll tell you in Indiana that basketball season starts when the frost is on the pumpkin. But Indiana boys of the 40s and 50s played the game all year round. Bobby Plump and 3 of his teammates lived 3.5 miles down the road from Milan in an even smaller town, Pierceville, with a population of 45.
Amenities, I can describe it very well. We had none. We never had running water. We had an old coal stove that, you got warm one side of you, either the back or the front. I guess the greatest thing we had was panes in the glass, and the wind didn't blow through so much.
People still drive miles to visit the spot where Bobby played ball as a kid. Every now and then, Pierceville locals will see a stranger standing in silence on the old gravel court, hoping to feel the magic of that simpler time.
My dad built a bankboard there on the back of the garage, and he had smaller gravel put on top of the others so that it would be easy to bounce the ball.
There was a sawmill about 1.5 miles down the road. We'd go down and get sawdust from the sawmill. If it was snow, we'd put sawdust down. When it's dry and cold and you're playing outside and you go inside to warm your hands, they crack. They'd bleed, but we'd just take tape and tape over that and go back out and play again.
We would hang an extension cord and a light on a reflector and play till we either dropped or Mom called us to come home.
There was a manure pile next to Schroeder's where we played.
On the left-hand side, that's the reason why everybody went right.
Every year for half a century, there are reunions with his teammates. Now they even include opponents from the neighboring towns in Ripley County.
If we'd known what we know now, we wouldn't let you out of Pierceville.
These days, to hear him talk so much and so often, it's hard to believe that Bobby Plump was once too timid to ask for a second helping of dessert, or that he was wary of traveling to Milan, which seemed like a big city to him.
Shy, quiet. In his sophomore year, he was inserted into the starting lineup, and I think that bolstered his, and that's when he found out that he was better than other people.
The 1954 Milan Indians were a talented team of interchangeable parts, connected by the chemistry that comes from playing together since grade school. As for Milan, the town was in a frenzy by state tournament time. The Indians easily won their sectional championship. Chris Voles, a local car dealer, sent the team in Pontiacs to the regionals, where they overcame a 7-point halftime deficit to beat Aurora. Then they were off to the States, this time in Cadillacs.
Credit card bills piling up?
Yep.
Need cash fast, huh?
Yep.
Try our e-loan home equity line to pay off those high-interest credit cards fast. In just 90 seconds, you could get approved to get the cash you need, and you'll have your money as quick as 12 days.
Hey, I'm approved already.
Needless paperwork? Gone. We'll even come to you for signing.
I like that.
Nothing should come between you and a great rate. That's why there's e-loan. Apply now at eloan.com or call 1-800-ELOAN22.
Muncie versus Milan, the high school basketball game that inspired the movie Hoosiers, and the greatest upset in basketball history. Now it's been uncovered, rediscovered, and airing on national TV for the first time ever. The 1954 Milan Miracle and your classic big ticket with Milan's own Bobby Plump and his game-winning shot that made Indiana basketball history. Plus, we're live in Indiana 50 years later for the rematch between these two high school teams. It all starts at 6 Eastern tonight on ESPN Classic.
NASCAR Nextel Cup Series phones are here. Choose from 10 different limited edition driver designs, all with built-in walkie-talkie and GPS. Plus, get real-time race updates. Act now. Save $75 after mail-in rebate. Nextel. Get it done with NASCAR. Call 8777 Nextel to shop or find a Nextel store.
What's the latest from Gateway? It's our cool new notebook with a mobile Intel Pentium 4 processor M for only $899.99. That's right, it might just be time to get into a smart Gateway notebook that's got all the power of a desktop and the space-saving portability of a laptop. It has a CD burner DVD combo drive and 256 megabytes of RAM, all for under $900. And when you order now, you'll save $250 and we'll ship it for free. So call 1-800-555-2081 today.
Milan was off to Indianapolis, to the big barn, to take their chances with a future basketball great.
In 1954, even as this last snapshot of another America is taking place, on the ascent is Indianapolis's Crispus Attucks High School with the great Oscar Robertson playing. The torch is being passed. It's a new America emerging in basketball where blacks are about to become dominant.
As the Indians prepared to face Crispus Attucks in their state quarterfinal game, Coach Marvin Wood noticed each of the Attucks players stop outside the dressing room to get a drink of water and catch a glimpse of these country boys.
They were in awe of Bobby. He just literally had them scared. I don't care what anyone says. They were in such awe of him that he could do whatever he wanted to do against a team that was really good.
No doubt Milan was fortunate to face Oscar Robertson when he was just a sophomore. Still, Milan won by 13 points. Plump scored 28. And then there was a final that seemed drawn up especially for a dream. Muncie Central, a city school of nearly 2,000 students. 4 state championship trophies already on the mantle. 4 more to come. Versus tiny rural Milan, with only 73 boys to choose from to field a basketball team.
We were just so naive. We just thought, well, we'd come out and we'd play in most all the games, and, you know, we'd win because we usually did.
Then when the boys came out on the floor, they were bigger than our guys, and I thought, oh, geez, you know, this is really going to be difficult.
The game was tight throughout, with Milan stalling for much of the second half, even when they were trailing.
And my mother says, Mary, what are they doing? What is Marvin doing? They're behind, and he know they're behind. And I said, Mother, I don't know what he's doing, but he must know what he's doing. Don't worry about it.
Score tied, 30 all, 18 seconds left. Milan calls timeout.
It was calm. We knew we had a chance to win it, and we knew if we could get, I knew, and I think we all knew if we could get the ball in the hand of Plump, he was going to get a good shot for us.
Gene suggested that we kind of clear things out, and our coach thought that was a good idea. So it was going to be one-on-one.
The only thing I remember is when it left my hand, I knew the ball was going in. That part, I do remember.
And when it went in, I looked down at the clock, and it said about 3 seconds, and I thought, well, everything's going to be okay.
The shot was true to the mark. How many lives that changed? We were actually playing that game for all the small teams who never had a chance to get there.
Marvin wasn't a real emotional person, but he'd say, I don't really believe we did it. And I'd say, but you did. Well, I know we did, but I can't believe it.
Well, they wouldn't talk about David and Goliath, but it happened every day.
The next day, the boys returned to Milan proud of their accomplishment, but unaware of just how much it meant to so many.
Cars are parked along the side of the road going into Milan 12 miles away, and we thought there was a tremendous accident there. They estimate there were between 30 and 40,000 people in Milan to greet us, and you can't get that many people in Milan. They were parked 12 miles around walking into town.
It was just a sea of people everywhere you looked. I was on the stage never dreaming that I was going to ever say anything. I'm 26 years old, and, you know, I just was a housewife. I just looked at the guys and I said, well, fellas, it's been a wonderful, wonderful weekend, but I'd like you to remember something, that it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And it stuck.
The closing prayer to the miracle of Milan, a slice of Midwestern wisdom, like the first light of morning heralding the end of a dream. Just this once, it had come true, but it never would again. Indiana would see to that.
It's Sports Illustrated's 40th anniversary swimsuit spectacular on newsstands now.
Only one of these 12 fans will win their dream job.
First quarter action.
Locked up in a tight one.
16 points in the first half.
As the next SportsCenter anchor, ESPN's Dream Job. Live, tomorrow at 10 p.m. on ESPN.
Jackie Robinson broke the Major League color barrier.
There was Jackie. He brought home.
But are players still fighting for equality?
Racism is in baseball. I don't care what anyone says.
Sports Century, The Disciples of Jackie Robinson, 8 p.m. Monday on ESPN Classic.
Muncie versus Milan, the high school basketball game that inspired the Moody Hoosiers, and the greatest upset in basketball history. Now, it's been uncovered, rediscovered, and airing on national TV for the first time ever. The 1954 Milan Miracle and your classic big ticket with Milan's own Bobby Plump and his game-winning shot that made Indiana basketball history. Plus, we're live in Indiana 50 years later for the rematch between these two high school teams. It all starts at 6 Eastern tonight on ESPN Classic.
The boys, as they are still called even though they're well into their 60s, have been coming back to town for the last 50 years, as much brothers as teammates. Bobby Plump's shot changed so many lives. Most of the boys went to college, afforded only with scholarships. Bobby Plump, once a shy country kid, is now a folk hero, identified by a jump shot and a dream.
I got a letter, and it was simply addressed Plump, Indiana, and they delivered it.
He raised a family and became a successful businessman. Yet he still gets an occasional phone call at some ungodly hour in the morning when the voice on the other end will ask him if he's really the guy who hit the shot. Bobby will politely answer yes, and then go back to sleep. The dream Bobby Plump made real isn't available to this year's Milan team. They play in the 2A class of the state's restructured high school system. In 1996, the Indiana High School Athletic Association voted to do away with the open state tournament, where all schools, big and small, competed against each other. Now, the schools are grouped according to size into 4 classes.
If you were in an area where you had a 200 or 300 in your school and 5 miles away there was a school with 3,000, you felt very strongly that you didn't have any chance to compete. A lot of people say, well, those David and Goliath matchups are great matchups. I've never had a David tell me that. It's only Goliath that's told me those are great matchups, and those are very intriguing.
Obviously, I disagree with Blake. And it was the opportunity that was there, not the winning of it, and they made it all a winning situation. We got to have more kids win a state tournament. Does that make for a better tournament? Does it make for a better student athlete? That isn't what it was built on for 86 years.
Most locals in the small towns today have a hard time telling you how far their team went the previous year. Because the sectionals, the intimate geographic rivalries, are gone.
Damn it! The roots of the tournament was at the sectional level. In the geographical region with the people that you've grown up with, you're the champion of your area.
I mean, somebody else got to step up and get a damn shot.
Now, sectionals are spread out. Teams are traveling over an hour for ball games. Crowd interest is down. You've destroyed the essence of the tournament.
And we done got soft defensively. We're going to get on the damn board. Get back out on.
If you're a small school, you're fortunate if you have a close game with a large school. Can they compete with the next school and the next one, the next one? I never think they can.
You're going to have to knock this shot down right here.
Why continue on and on if you know you're no good and you know you're not going anywhere?
If you make things easy, is it better? Is that progress? Are they going to have it easier after they graduate?
Triangle 2.
Can they say, wait a minute, I only want to compete against this size bank. I only want to compete against this size insurance company. Everybody can't be a winner.
Disheartened proponents of the abandoned single-class system might find support in the first Hoosier, John Wooden, who favors a quotation from Cervantes. It is the journey, not the destination, that's important.
I was down to a little town called Valonia over the weekend, half the size of Milan. And in the old gym there's a picture of the 1950 sectional team. It's still on the wall.
If we're running this tournament totally to see how much money we can make and to draw the biggest fan base, we made the wrong decision. If we're running this tournament for what's best for kids and allows kids to feel good about themselves, then we made the right decision.
If you're told every day, if you don't win this game, you're nothing, what's that going to do to you? Eventually, you're going to get to the point you kind of believe, well, I am nothing. Instead of holding your head up, yeah, so we got beat, but we played the best we could. We played our hearts out, and we got beat. This is all you can ask.
In '96, Delta went to the state tournament. I spoke the Thursday night before their state tournament at a gymnasium. I think it held maybe 5,000 people. Standing room only, couldn't find a parking place, just because they're going to the state tournament. Not that they won it, that they're going.
Around the country, consolidation has made big schools even bigger. But Kentucky continues to hold on to its single-class tournament. All schools competing for one coveted prize.
3 minutes, fellas. 3 minutes, and you got the school's first state championship for boys. You hear me? Don't be denied.
In the Bluegrass State, the dream is still alive.
Have we changed with the times? Yeah, and we better if we're going to survive. We're not going to survive if we don't adapt to the times.
There's one thing about Indiana basketball that hasn't changed with the times. Though the playing field has been evened and a single state title is no longer there for the taking, the game doesn't matter any less to the kids who play it.
Hey, get your heads up. This team has got to pull together. This team has got to start to display some confidence in each other, but more so, you've got to start to display some confidence in yourselves. I'm getting dang gone tired of talking about it.
But these days, the frost on the pumpkin just doesn't mean what it once did to Hoosiers. A dream that united Indiana has been lost, exiled to a romanticized past. Along with rural areas replaced by sprawl, the friendly few by the faceless many, teamwork by self-interest. And in the town of Milan, 50 years removed from its heyday, the bustle has moved out to the byway.
Okay. After my boy got out of school,
Trains don't stop here anymore.
Nothing stays the same. It's nice to remember the way it was, but nothing stays the same. It would be nice if there were businesses there like there were in the 50s, but everything changes. I guess it's part of progress.
It's gone down so much. It's hard for me to come back now. We came down here and we stood on the corner. I said, Marvin, if there's anyone that doesn't believe that was a miracle, they need to come and stand right here on this corner.
Nothing wrong with dreams. They don't all work out, but you'd be surprised how coming close to that dream, how much that's worth.
Milan's coach, Marvin Wood, died of cancer in 1999. He was a religious man and a basketball innovator who guided his team with a stern hand.
Some of us, when we were growing up, we didn't have a father. But with Mr. Woods, you could talk about anything and everything. So I don't know what else to say about him. I loved him.
Coach Wood was buried with his championship ring on his finger and a photo of the team by his side.
I just came across a little article that he wrote for the newspaper in our area. He had talked about what he thought one-class basketball did for Indiana and what it would be if it went. And at the end, he said, "So long, good friend. It's been a great ride."